thinking about how the new built environment could create higher quality of life for you, wondering how hard it would be to participate, pause, think about it with intentional thought, and consider where we go from here. Join our co-sponsors, Domdev Enterprises and Page Investment, and our friends at Ironese Realty, D1 Development, Sammy's Chicken, and Karen, the boys down there on West Side Barbershop. Ask your questions. Tell us where you are, what you are thinking about, and we'll endeavor to answer the questions as best as we can. At least our guest tonight will. So share, 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 share. Get all your friends involved because this is the big money maker for you. And we're going to be right back after this message.
Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles.
Welcome back to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. We say what we think, we become. What we radiate, we attract. And what we imagine, we surely can achieve. Let's change the narrative 2 for 2. So this evening, we have a special guest as usual, Mr. D'Arcy Rahming Jr. You know, people who have multiple names, they're big shots. And so you're going to see him pop up on the screen in a second or two. Okay, something's happening with the screen.
Hi, thank you for having me on the show. I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful conversation today.
Awesome. So, D'Arcy, you were our guest some time ago, almost a year this time.
Almost a year ago, yes.
Yes. And
yes.
We promised to bring you back, and then we changed chapters. And now we have this show. But when we were then last, we were talking about the blueprint in order to move forward. And so now we know that you have taken that blueprint and built it into something tangible.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk about that tonight.
A lot has happened in the year. So we could talk a lot about specifically about different parts of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But for people to know, D'Arcy is a young man, as you can see. He's also a graduate that is dealing with robotics. So that tell you that between those 6 inches between his ears is a lot of brain power in there. And so we believe that that brain power is going to translate into the product that he's going to talk about tonight. But we also know that he is the Chief Technical Officer of ArawakX. I think that would be safe to say that. Before you were with your dad, and you're still with your dad, but in a different form and so forth. And we know that you build businesses and an entrepreneur. So those things will come in handy for our youth, yourselves alike and others. And we hope that you're able to offer some nuggets tonight that will help them figure out how to move themselves forward and create wealth.
Yes.
Awesome. So you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna. There was a lot of different things. So I think we could probably start with, what it is that ArawakX does, and then we can probably go from there into the history and all of that other stuff. Why we're doing it. So Arawak.
What's his name? Columbus took the Arawaks and chased them out, and so we got you back now to find the treasure and give it to everybody.
We chose the name ArawakX because the Arawak peoples, the Taino peoples, were the original inhabitants of these lands. And Arawak language was actually the language of trade. And I think that's really apropos for what we're doing because we are a stock exchange over the internet. And stock exchanges are about linking up investors and businesses together.
Right.
Investors need investments to grow their money, to grow their wealth, and businesses need capital to go after new opportunities.
Right.
And the two of them kind of come together over a regulated marketplace, is what they're called. And so trade can happen. And so that's why ArawakX. Yeah.
Awesome. And so now, when we look at that, you talked about the ArawakX, the name and stuff like that. But what, in terms of the framework that we're dealing with here now, what is actually ArawakX? Is it?
So it is a licensed, fully licensed stock exchange by the Securities Commission of the Bahamas. And so it took us 4 years and thousands of pages of regulatory work to get this license. So we're licensed actually to do this business. The website makes it look easy. You just go on ArawakX.com. You're able to sign up in 5 minutes. You're able to pick the companies, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work that is required to make it so easy. And that's been one of the hurdles for our society for a long time, is that yes, you can invest. Yes, there are investment opportunities, but oftentimes that the barriers are really high. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of regulatory work if you're a company trying to list. There's a lot of it's not very efficient. There's some inefficiencies in the traditional way. And so what we decided to do is to use technology to make these things a lot more efficient. And so that's kind of my job at the firm, to understand where we're going as a business and then use technology to support it. If I start geeking out, because I can be a little bit of a nerd sometimes, that just brings me back down to earth. So I'm really happy to be on your show to talk to your guests about it.
Yes, awesome. And so when we look at that, so that's an stock exchange. And normally when we hear about stock exchanges, we're talking about the master persons would just let it go out one ear and say, oh, that's for people in the far west or something like that. We don't operate in that, but I think we'll get to the point where we can show later on how that is different.
You know why it is? It's because we've not had that as a tool before to use it to build wealth.
Right.
So wealth is built through assets, right? So everybody kind of knows a couple of assets. Your house is an asset. You're able to build equity in your house. That's wealth. That's a form of wealth. Cash is an asset, the amount of money you have in the bank. But really the other form of asset, the one that really truly makes wealth, is ownership of companies. We have these digital assets now. It's interesting. We're not going to spend any time talking about them, but that potentially in the future, that's really early of stage. So the ball is out with that one. But it's assets, especially companies. And imagine the people who got into Facebook really early. There's a guy named Peter Thiel. He put $500,000 into Facebook for 10% of Facebook, and then he sold it for $50 billion. So imagine if you could have been that guy who got in early into Facebook. Imagine the exit. And so that's kind of what ArawakX does, is it allows you to participate in the company when it's right past that idea stage, before it goes into all of that growth, and you can ride that with the business. And so that's kind of what we do.
So on that note then, so can you just give us a snapshot of what the vision, the mission, the values and the behaviors that you all subscribe to, so people would know where they could identify with you?
Okay, so let's start with the mission. So the mission of our company is to empower businesses and empower investors, bring them together. The vision of this, the reason why we're doing this is because, as an entrepreneur, a millennial, a person who did not have to come home, I have a skill set that is very needed in the modern world.
Yes.
Tons of jobs, even still on LinkedIn, some people offer me, hey, why don't you come over here, etc. But I chose to come back home understanding that this is my country, this is where I'm from. I should build it up. And as I was here working, we recognized, me and my old man recognized that, if the innovative people in our society are not able to get the funding that they need and the support that they need to grow, the economy kind of remains as it is.
Right.
And so for us, the vision of this is, how do we create an environment? We believe we're doing this with ArawakX. So ArawakX is an environment where the business community, the innovators in society are able to come together with the smart money and everybody's money that wants to be smart, and come together, and everybody's rights are protected so that they can grow together. And so that's kind of the vision of it. And then I would say the last thing, our core value of the company is financial inclusion. And financial inclusion doesn't mean the rich aren't going to get richer. The rich are going to get richer.
Right.
The middle class are going to get richer, and the poor are going to get richer. That's what financial inclusion means, is that everybody can participate in this system, in our capitalistic system. Of course, not equally. People are going to be able to participate more if you have more money, but in proportion to what you put in, you should be able to get out. And that's what stock exchanges are about. And so fortunate that came back home. I didn't go into an engineering discipline. I joined my dad in his management consulting practice, but we worked with a lot of different companies, getting them in the shape so that they could get investors.
Right.
So I got to see hundreds and hundreds of business plans and business models, and really get into the nitty gritty of what makes a business work, why they fail, what structures that are necessary. And then in about 2017, when the Securities Commission went out to industry to see if anyone wanted to do this thing called crowdfunding, which is basically a stock exchange over the internet. Me and Dad were sitting there thinking to ourselves, this is something we could do. This is business, this is economics, this is finance. Dad has his MBA in finance. And this combines all of that love for that. And what we like really about it is that it has a democratizing element to it, that anyone can participate. And because anyone can participate, everyone can participate. And so it kind of is a fusion of all of that. And so 4 years later, tons and tons of regulatory work. I'm 31, but I have gray hairs, which should tell you. But we're happy to be doing this, and we're happy to be adding value to the country we love in this way.
Right. That's awesome. And so in one of the commentaries, whether I can't remember whether it was you or your dad or somebody was talking about, and you were saying that part of the vision of this ArawakX is to actually help build the wealth of the youth, right? How did that pan into the picture? How did you get to?
It comes back to that this idea of financial inclusion. So it's only those that are allowed to participate in the system that can benefit, right? And so, like I say, and it's not necessarily a class issue. It is, though, a structural mechanism issue. Our structures in the old way of doing finance, very much paper, a lot of paper, a lot of, labor intensive. You had to have a certain amount of money to make that financially feasible for a company to be able to service you, right? So a financial firm would often say, you got to have $50,000 to participate. Well, I mean, in the old way of doing it, in order to participate, they have to have tons of people in the back office, tons of people there to keep track of all of these things, to do all of these things. And so what we recognized, and this is what this whole fintech financial technology revolution is about, is taking the best elements of the technology world and applying them to finance. And those elements mean digitizing a lot of processes, speeding up things, making them more efficient. And then what that does is it allows us to reduce the barrier to entry. so that anyone can participate.
Right.
And that's where the wealth comes in. Once you can participate, you can play the game.
Right.
And that's what it's really about, right? I think that's, if you were to listen to people's frustrations over the last year, or since I've been a little kid, I think the big frustration is that people are not allowed to participate in the fullness of the society. And that's kind of what everybody wants. It shouldn't just be, I mean, let me play the game. I mean, okay, so I'm not a fast runner, but I should be able to get on the track, right?
Right.
And that's what we're doing.
Right. And so when we would have been moving forward from last year onwards, and COVID was coming up, and so I coined this term called the new built environment. Everybody's talking about this new normal. I don't think there's such a thing as a new normal, because if it's new, it has to be new. It can't be normal. It can't be the same thing. But it's however you want to look at it. But the definition that we had for it leads to us to be able to deal with three specific things as it relates to ArawakX, as I see it, in terms of, one is the economics, the other one is quality of life, and the other one is generational sustainability. So from an economic point of view, we have enabling, as you say, anybody can participate. So then that should really enable the continuation of empowering the Bahamianization stuff. Not that foreign is bad or anything like that, but
but I mean,
right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Bahamianization. I think the ultimate goal was that this idea of financial inclusion. We see all of this wealth kind of developing around us. All of us have been to Florida or most of us, I should say, have been on a plane to Florida, and you see all of that great wealth. You see these hotels and all this great wealth passing by. But how do you tap into it, and not tap into it by like scamming someone or robbing someone or doing something bad? But how do you tap into it by adding value? How are we able to do that? And so I think that's what Bahamianization, the goal of Bahamianization was. Now, the implementations of certain of ideas are a lot messier than the goals. So let's talk about the high level goals. We're going to be arguing about the implementation of these ideas for a long time.
And so when we talk about quality of life, I mean, I look at it from the whole idea of this access to the wealth. So do we have any stories of people who have already benefited from the?
Absolutely. So well, first of all, with the Red Lobster, there are over 1,200 investors already in it, and it's already hit its minimum. And so that means there will be a Red Lobster chain here. There's still time to participate. I think that actually it was yesterday, the deadline got extended. And so there's still a lot of time to participate in that one. Then there's the other two listings. There's Groove and then there's Grow.
Right.
And basically, I'm not allowed to. Here's my disclaimer. I'm not allowed to give investment advice. You have to make a decision for your own. You have to understand that it is an investment and you can lose all your money. That being said, now people have the opportunity to participate in these things. Before all of, there's this thing called private equity. And that's basically deals happen behind closed doors. So you don't ever really get to see this wealth. And so what we're doing, what ArawakX is doing, is it allows you to participate, get on the ground floor. And then when you see any returns with your money, you're going to guess what you're going to do with that money. You're going to spend that money. You're going to take that money and go on vacation, or you're going to buy a house or send your kids off to college, or, and that's a really good question, Miss Lauren McDonald. I see that. Yes. So we're a regulated platform, regulated by the Securities Commission of the Bahamas, the same people that regulate BISICs, the same people that regulate many of the banks. So there are tons and tons of safeguards, so many that I don't want this to become a regulatory show, right? Because it takes a special kind of person to be really into regulation. They're called regulators. And no, but in all seriousness, but there are tons. We've worked with the Securities Commission for for many years to make sure that the safeguards were sufficient, given the amount of risk and the goals of crowdfunding. So we're very happy to be up. We're very happy to be working with our regulators, and we got some good attentive ones. So I'm happy.
Right, and this is in the digital arena domain, and we know that most of the millennials and digital natives that's like their ocean, right?
Oh yeah, I'm a child of the internet. I mean, I spend way too much time on my phone. Let me just say it that way.
Yeah. So this should last for a long time. This type of activity.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, on the ArawakX side, it is a service. We're a financial service, which means that these things can last for a very long time. There will always be businesses, and there will always be investors looking for better return on their money. And so, for us, we are just really happy to be able to help in this way. We are trying hard. We try every day to be part of the community, to be communicative with the community. So, and that means that if you have any issues with any of our services, feel free to write us directly on Facebook, Instagram, contact us. We're going to try and make sure that your situation gets sorted out. We are trying to build a great payment company here. So that means that hold us to task, but also remember that we too are a startup. So you got to give us just understand that we're trying our best, and our people are trying their best, and we are really trying to make a difference in the community.
Right. Awesome. So folks, we're just about ready to go to a break, but before we do, D'Arcy here, Rahming Jr., he is, like I said, a guru with robotics. And so when he's building, he's going to be...
I like building stuff, yes.
Yeah, and he's building these things, and ArawakX is one of those that he's doing as a team. And so you can see that there are many things out there. Once you put your mind to it, and you create a team, then you could go ahead and build it and be participants in our society. So we don't always have to be a doctor, lawyer, so forth,
And to add to what you're saying, Mr. Happy Knowles, and I know we could do this after the break, maybe we could probably segue right into the generational sustainability with that.
Cool. All right. Well, you've been listening to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles, and we're here with D'Arcy Rahming Jr. He's the brain box, I call it, behind the technical brain box behind ArawakX. A young man driving, being successful in our society. He could have been anywhere in the world, but he's here in the Bahamas, building a nation, one step at a time. And that could be you also. So we'll be right back to talk more in detail of some of the things on ArawakX, etc.
Sammy's Chicken. There's nothing like it.
I'm Clark, 34 years of age. I met him through playing some night league games, being on the same team, and one of those players who never got much minutes, but me as a player always like to speak to everyone on the team, and I just found out like he has a real passion and love for sports, so we kind of grew that connection like that. At this age, it was surprising to me that I could even enhance my skills or improve my skills, whether it comes to ball handling, shooting, just a little bit of footwork and stuff like that. And I could say all credit goes to Coach Denzel for that, being out here training either in the morning or the evening time, where he just correct my footwork or whatever it needs to be corrected, he's there to correct it for me. When it comes to your jump shot, like I say, your footwork, your ball handling, your conditioning, your stretching, but even it comes down to all of those things, what matter and harnessing your skills, he there to provide that information and the support. Because he out here 7 days a week.
Welcome back to Something to Think About with Dale Happy Knowles. We're here this evening talking with D'Arcy Rahming Jr., my classmate's son, the brain box of all of us, the three of us, I guess. But welcome back, D'Arcy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so before the break, we were talking about the concepts of ArawakX, etc. And we started to talk about in terms of the new built environment, in terms of the economic, the quality of life, and now we will touch on the generational sustainability. I think that is key in order to move us forward.
Absolutely. I think you had brought up the thing. We were starting to talk a little bit about teams.
Yes.
And how we at ArawakX have a team of people. Right. That kind of allow us to do this. I mean, I'm the young face, but there's a lot of people in the background that do a lot of good work that make me look good. And so I would be remiss to not talk about them. Sure. And so in this idea of generational sustainability, I'm a millennial, but we have baby boomers on the staff. We got Gen Xers, there's of course millennials, and then there's even a couple of Gen Zs now, which are the 18, 19-year-olds, which everybody still can't imagine. People born in the 2000s that are actually of working age. So I mean, it's but I say all that to say that it's important to recognize if you're going to do business that is growing, you have to learn how to work with people in different generations. And because we all have different skills and we all have different value that we can add to the company. And that takes time to learn as a business person for many people.
Yes. And, you mentioned that it takes time to learn. Everybody has to learn something different. That is not a part of our natural equilibrium of sorts, right? And I know having two millennial sons that, the digital environment, everybody wants everything now, fast. And then also from my previous employment, having people come in as a revolving door because management isn't moving as fast as what the young people want. And so, there's no, I wouldn't say there's no loyalty, but there's no fear that they can't move on to find new opportunities. And so you
Well,
found, go ahead.
yeah, well, what it is also, frankly, a lot of people are underpaid here. So, I mean, it's one thing to be well paid and to be dealing with stagnant leadership.
Right.
But when you're underpaid and you're dealing with stagnant leadership, you're gonna go carry yourself somewhere else. And so I think it's really only in these fast growing companies where you can see where you're doing something bigger than just yourself, bigger than it's almost, the company is almost like a vehicle for carrying out this grand mission, that you can get all of these generations on the same page, focused towards a common goal. Because otherwise, otherwise you're going to get into the petty squabbling between each other. It's just like I watched your commercials, just like it's like the game of basketball.
Right.
If people are not focused on the goal of winning the game, focused on the goal of getting that ball in the hoop on the next play, they start to bicker, and then of course you can't work together. And so it's the same in business as it is in sport.
Right. But that's one of the keys, though, of youth becoming empowered. I mean, we have our ArawakX, the platform, but it's also the soft skills and the teamwork, wanting to be a part of a team.
That's right.
Because you might not always be the leader at the beginning. I mean, you're a leader. A leader's a leader, but you might not be the one leading. But
leadership,
at the beginning, but that don't mean you won't be the one leading in time. Yeah.
Well, leadership is something that has to be groomed. And so I think one of the reasons you see those high turnover rates is that people are not able to communicate their desires to management. So like, okay, so I'm 18 years old, I want to be the CEO one day. That means I have to get the certain experiences that are necessary for me to do that. If you're just going to put me in the back office, shuffling boxes, that's fine for a time, maybe to learn how to do inventory or to do whatever. But I can't be pigeonholed there because I'll never be able to get to where I want to go.
Right.
And so that's part of that communication, in recognizing that people have different wants with their lives. I mean, companies are made up of people, complex groups of people that want different things. And it's about kind of lining up everyone's interests so that we can accomplish the goal in a way that's fair and equitable for everyone that's doing that, that's doing the work. And that's the fun part about companies. If you're into organizational behavior, if you're not into organizational behavior, it's a stressful part because it means you have to learn how to communicate, which is not is not one of our strong suits as a people.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it is. It's just we like our way more than
yeah. Well, that's not communication. That's you telling you what to what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, but the tool of communication, they still know how to do that. It's just that we don't like the band.
Well, I mean, that's it's about finding that right mix, right, where you understand the relationships, and when I say relationships, I mean, like, for example, the relationship between the executive and the managers, right? The executive has executive authority, which means that ultimately the buck stops at him. The decision stops with him. He has to make a decision, and his career is on the line when he makes a mistake. The people beneath him are supposed to advise him, to give him the best information that they possibly have, understanding that it's still his job to make the decision, and understanding that he's taking into account all of what they've said. And it's the two of those coming together and people having the trust to trust each other to do these things. And those are what I mean by communication, because it's not just you don't just manage down, you got to manage up to, and you have to be open to communication up and down the org chart, which is very difficult for a lot of people.
Yes, it is. And sideways. So
And sideways, yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
and you're talking about relationships in that, and so as we know that you need those relationships in order to foster that team environment, because you have people create double play, shortstop, second baseman, and stuff, so they know what's happening without even thinking what the other one is going to be doing or thinking. And so that same thing needs to happen in our environment. But one of the things that we need that to happen with is our relationships with a tool such as an ArawakX, right? How does that tie in? How easy is it for somebody out there to interface with an ArawakX?
So as a business person, our value add is, there's first is the financing, right? With the financing, you can invest in your people. Oftentimes, with a business, we don't consider the fact that, yes, you can have the right equipment. Yes, you can have all the coolest tech. But if your people aren't trained and are not adding value to the customers, it does not matter. So it is people that creates businesses. And I believe very much in the mantra that if you build your people will build your business. And so it's, and part of that is being able to afford the talent that you need to go after that business. Sometimes you need professionals. You need professionals, like, for example, at the higher levels, when you start to become a biggish kind of company, you're going to need MBAs and stuff like that. And MBAs are not cheap. I mean, these people they spent tons of time in school. If you're in a regulated space like how we are, we need lawyers and professional CPAs and stuff like that. Those are not cheap professionals. And so you have to finance that. There's very few people on this planet that are born with that kind of wealth just sitting around. And if you are, God bless you. But for the rest of us, we have to finance it. And so it's kind of what ArawakX does, is gets you that financing. Second value add is we help walk you through the regulatory process. Like I'm saying before, there's a lot of rules and regulations. To come back to those kind of safeguards. While you can't safeguard against a business failing, right, because there are just not enough customers or the opportunity isn't there, you can safeguard against a lot of the little reasons why businesses fail. And so that's what the regulations are there for. And so we help businesses become acquainted with their obligations, become acquainted with the environment. It may not seem like you need all those rules at first, but all of those rules are there to protect all of the various stakeholders in the environment. Because once you become a publicly listed company or a crowd-funded listed company, you no longer just have an obligation to yourself as the business owner. You have an obligation to your employees and your shareholders in a way that is different, but it allows you to grow beyond yourself. And that's what it's about, right? So it comes back to this whole idea of communication and teams and understanding what people really want. And by properly structuring the relationships and the communication between the various groups, you're then able to get what you want, and by giving others what they want. And so that's kind of the game of business, right? You want money, you give the customer what he wants, and the customer gives you money. I mean, it is that simple, which is very hard to do.
Trade. Services.
Yeah, it's a trade. It's a fair trade. That's what it should be about.
Yeah. So when we look at this now, and we start to look at the actual how to use the tool or the business, I don't know how you look at it, the devices requirements, is that something onerous that people need to get them?
So you can go right on your smartphone. I'm going to do it right now. You go to ArawakX.com, and you'll be able to, when it's up, it'll look like that on your smartphone. I hope you can see that. You click I'm an investor, and then it takes you 5 minutes to sign up. You're going to see some screen that looks kind of like that. You do that, you upload your passport, etc. It takes you 5 minutes, and then within a day, we're getting better, but within a day or two, you'll get an email saying you've been approved, unless you're, of course, Osama bin Laden, and we can't approve Osama bin Laden. but outside of Osama bin Laden, you'll be approved, and then you'll be emailed your credentials, and then you can begin to it's called order. You begin to place an order for Red Lobster, Groove, or Grow, and then you will be able to then they'll send you payment instructions. You pay it, and you get a nice receipt. And then at the end of the issuance, you're going to be able to get some proof that you own shares in that company. And then you'll be having a relationship, not just with ArawakX. You'll also start to develop that investor to company relationship, and you'll be able to communicate that way as well.
Right. And so in that registration process, there's not to dig into it, but you mentioned, I guess that's the KYC type.
That's that KYC stuff, yeah. That all these financial institutions love to ask you for. I mean, unfortunately, this is we are in the regulated space. People have used these tools before to do nonsense. And so it's important that you understand that you are going to have to provide some information. Just provide the information to the best of your ability. We are not immigration. We're not checking to see your status. We're just checking to see that you're a legitimate person. And you're a real person that hasn't done a financial crime. And that's pretty much it. Those are pretty much the only people. A financial crime or a terrorist are pretty much the only people that are not allowed to participate. So
yeah. So when I looked at the site and everything, it seemed like it's like basically 3 simple steps that in order to.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad it comes off that way.
It seemed that way, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be super simple for the end user. I mean, like I say, there's so many stuff that goes on in the background. I don't want to get into all of that. There's a reason these things take years and years to build. But yeah, so that's what we want to do. We want to make the process super simple. To put the necessary protections in place so that the only thing you have to worry about as the investor is, hey, do I like this business? Do I like this team? Do I believe this thing is going to work? And if the answer is yes, I can put my money in, and I know that it's structured in a way that when I put my money in, I have a good chance of getting it out. And that's what investing is about.
Right. Now, there's one part of it that I think we have to touch on, because in recent times, there's been gazillions of money in that other virtual product, which is gone astray. And so how do you give people confidence that ArawakX is going to be up, it's going to be functioning, where they say you put the money and all that kind of stuff actually goes there and does there and all that kind of stuff? Because I mean, you're a new company.
I know what you're talking about. Okay, so it's important before you invest in any structure or whatever. If you're unsure, you ask them to see their registration certificate from their regulator. Yes, a bank has a building, but a bank also has a regulator called the central bank. And all of these banks have certificates that are issued by them that license them to do that business. So we are licensed by the Securities Commission of the Bahamas to do this business. If you ask somebody for their certificate and they start freaking out and start saying, oh, no, well, I'll get back to you or whatever, and they're not legitimate. Do not expect to put your money with people that are not licensed to do these kinds of businesses and not expect to scam. That's what scammers are doing. So, you can come into our offices and see it. If you want it, we will shoot you a screenshot of it. It's very public knowledge. We are public. Like I say, we had to spend 4 years and actually several $1 million to get to this point as to where we are. And so this is it's a financial institution. Yes, we're a startup, but it's a new financial institution. But we intend to be here. I have no intentions of going anywhere, and I hope to live a very long time. So, so that's God's willing, of course. But it's we are here. We're new, but the players involved, the team is not new. You can take a look at our team. Our team has business professionals, finance professionals, former regulators, economists. It takes a lot to run this. Technologists, of course, because there's a lot of technology. So but it is business still.
Right. That's awesome. And so for a person who might not be financially savvy on the like to know who to invest with, that's something that is outside of ArawakX's space, correct?
Yeah. So we're not licensed to give advice. Those are what are called financial advisors. Kind of like I'm sure you've heard of other types of advisors. Yeah. They give you advice. We provide a mechanism. We just make sure that companies are structured in a certain way. And then ultimately, it's up to you and your advisor to decide whether or not this is an investment that makes sense for you. There is, and you'll only know that by where you are in your life. I mean, financial advice is one of those things that is so different, it's so personalized that you have to, you really have to sit down with a financial advisor or your spouse or whatever to make up your mind as to what you are doing. That being said, with ArawakX, you now have the structure to be able to invest in these companies that you never had before. And so that's our value add. Our value add is twofold. You have companies that are new, fast growing. Every company is looking to grow at least 10 times. So if it works, it'll be big. If it doesn't work, then that's investing. And then on the investor side, we brought the barriers to entry down so that anyone could participate. And so it's those two real core value adds that we've brought. Anyone can participate, and you can participate in these fast-growing companies. And that's kind of what we've done. There's a lot of regulation. I make it sound super simple. It is not super simple business. Teams and teams of professionals, tons of money invested to make this thing work. But we're here, we're happy, and we're happy that we have our first success too, because people are. It means that this wasn't just an idea. While we were launching it, there were a lot of people that said things like, "Oh, I don't think Baymans are ready for it," or the business community isn't ready for it, and all kinds of negative comments. And so it makes you wonder if really, they might be right. Well, guess what? They're not right. People do want this. The business community wants it. Investment community wants it. And so we're happy to be a part of it. And I'm happy to be able to add value and shake things up a little bit from home.
Yeah, and expands the economy too, because it causes everything to grow. And so when we look at that though, in terms of the use of the investor coming in, yes, he has to get his own advice and stuff like that, but in order to actually make the trade or make the investment, does he need any of those things, or just to have his own user account himself?
He has his own account, and he places his order right on the website. So it is really that simple. It's I say, I mean, it basically, once you have the account set up, you can invest as often or as little as you want, and often and as much as you want. And it takes minutes to place orders. Right. Whereas in the past, you would have had to call up this place, and they'd have to wait. They'd have to get back to you. That takes a couple of weeks. So we've drastically improved the process from what it has existed in the past. And like I say, different type of asset class, fast growing, different companies. We've got hundreds of companies in the pipeline, and we're really excited. We're really excited to be supporting these businesses. There's a lot of great entrepreneurs out there that are finally have a tool that they can grow their community. They can go out and as people see opportunity, are able to go after it, and in a way that pulls not just themselves up and creates wealth for themselves, but also creates wealth for their their investors, and that's kind of what it's about. That's organizational behavior, right? That those interrelated relationships and creating a win-win environment. That's what society is supposed to be about. Win-win.
Yeah, and so on our system, are you limited to companies that are just in the Bahamas or Bahamas registered companies, or
so
can it be around the world?
we are only limited in companies that are listed on the platform. So that's it. Many of them in the future will be coming from outside of the Bahamas to list. If you're asking whether or not you'll be able to be, will you ever be able to buy Facebook on there? No, that's not our business. Facebook is listed on another exchange called NASDAQ.
Okay.
And so you won't be able to buy Facebook shares, but you will be able to hopefully buy in a company that becomes the next Facebook.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And so
I should call them Meta now. They're not Facebook anymore.
Right. Yeah. Meta voice.
Yeah.
That's so how much money do you need to invest? Can it be $2, $10, $1,000?
Gotta buy at least one share. We're not doing for fractional shares.
Okay.
You got to buy one share, and what that means is I think they're for $16 you can buy one share. So really accessible. If you can't find $16,
that's too bad.
I mean, yeah, everybody can find that. So you don't need $50,000 to participate.
Cool. Okay. So people have a couple of dollars. Why would they put it in ArawakX versus putting it in the bank?
Well,
you know what I mean, the facilitated.
Yeah. So it's about risk versus reward. The bank, it's super safe, but you have like effectively a negative interest rate. They're charging you money and they're giving you 0%. So it's effectively you're losing money to keep it in the bank. You could do nothing with your money. You could keep it under your mattress, but then cousin or somebody else can come and steal it. So it's not really safe there. It's not growing. You could put it in some other financial vehicles, such as government bonds. And that money is usually pension type money that you need to keep safe because that's for retirement or for some long-term goal. So those are good vehicles for that. But then you have that money that is there that you would love to grow your wealth with. So traditionally we had real estate. We would, you'd buy a lot, you'd put a duplex on it, rent both of those out, get you some cash flow. But frankly, that while it's cash flow producing asset is not very good for the growth of your wealth. It takes you, basically, it takes a long time to grow your wealth that way, right? And it's really only through what venture capitalists and what American style capitalism, Silicon Valley discovered is that if you get into early stage companies when they're growing, that's where the wealth is created, because especially a company that has an international market, that's looking to expand internationally or globally. And there are those kind of companies here. Those kinds of companies can grow 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. Facebook grew 100,000 times from when the first person put money in. So, that's an insane amount of growth that you can now participate in. Now, like I say, you have to make up your own mind as to whether or not it's possible. But how you do that is you use, you just look at the team. You say, look at the idea, of course, make sure that the idea is good. You believe in the idea and the product. And then look at the team and say, can these people do this? And if the answer is yes, and this is not your rent money, and this is not your old age retirement money, and this is not your, I got to pay school fees money. If it's that extra money that you're looking to grow, you only need a couple of good hits in your life, to grow that into something big. And so that's kind of the philosophical approach that venture capitalists take. And so it's, now you can participate too. You could be a VC.
Right. And so in your beginning the liquidity, you talked about investment and crowdfunding. Are you treating the two of those as one and the same, or?
Yes. So it is technically a crowdfunding platform, but crowdfunding is really just raising money over the internet.
Right.
And equity crowdfunding is raising money over the internet, asterisk, in a regulated environment. So those are where all the rules and the licensing and stuff comes in. And so it's all of that kind of, that's what makes it fintech. Is there's the finance part and the regulation part, and then there's the technology part, and then fusing it together, which makes it really fun for me as the market operator, because it's complicated and you know, a lot of technology, a lot of regulation, a lot of law, a lot of all these little parts, a lot of people. So I love it. I'm really happy to be doing this kind of business. But for the user, it should be super simple, because, you know, while I just said all of that stuff, you don't really most people don't really care about that stuff. Most people care about just being able to put their money in, being able to get a return on their investment out, and knowing that the process is as safe as possible. Obviously, you can't guarantee any investment. There is no such thing as a safe investment. Period. Anyone that says that to you is lying. So yeah, but it's about doing it in a way that is structured properly for the best chance of success.
Right. And so when we look at any tool is only as good as the persons who handling the tool, however powerful it is. My dad used to race a Hemi Cuda, and plenty of people spin off the road in that, trying to drive it, but it was simple to him, right?
Yeah, so, you're absolutely right. In a saw in the hands of a kid is he might saw off his hand, whereas in the hands of a craftsman might build a beautiful boat. And so it is the same.
Yeah. So as we come into the close here now, what else is needed in this environment for us to fulfill this last leg of the Bahamianization program in terms of this empowering ourselves economically? Go ahead.
I would say it's trust. We have to begin to trust each other. We're pretty good at trusting ourselves. A lot of us have become highly educated as people, highly competent, but you have to learn how to trust other people. And just like when you get into a plane, trust is not just blind. Trust is structured. When you get into an airplane, you know that the pilot, you don't even need to see the pilot or know who the pilot is. You know that the pilot went to the right schools, took the right certifications. He's not drunk or high at this particular moment, because there's all these safeguards. I mean, if you watch the movie Flight, maybe not. But if there's all these safeguards in place, there's this structured environment that's surrounding this competent person. That's what you trust. You trust all of it. And so it's about, for us to make the next jump, we have to build these structures that allow us to trust the people, and then amazing things happen. And that's what I think is our task to build in these next decade or two, is those structures.
Well, awesome. This is good stuff, a good start. And folks out there, if you just tuned in, we're here with D'Arcy Rahming Jr., the CTO at ArawakX. Crowdfunding mutual, how you put it?
It's equity crowdfunding. So ArawakX,
right.
Yep, we are a registered marketplace over the internet.
Yeah. So if you have any questions in these last 2 minutes or so, sorry, I should have said that earlier, but if any questions, be sure to put them on the table. So the last one I have for you before I ask you a question would be, what is the attitude that is needed now to maximize these type of tools that we have? Yeah.
I would say the attitude is just one of hope. You have to have hope that the future is going to get better. It's not going to get better just because you hope. It's hope with a plan. You have to have a plan for yourself, for your family, for your community. If you're a business person, you have to have plans. There are tons and tons of plans. and it's about just having hope that you're going to try this plan and life is going to be a little bit better. You're going to learn. It's either going to work and you're going to learn something, or it's not going to work and you're going to learn something. But have hope in the future. Things are going to get better. When I think most people become hopeful, I know this is a very difficult time for a lot of people, and it's really a dark place for a lot of people right now. But once you realize that you have life and that life means opportunity and possibility, then you can be hopeful in the future, and you make a plan, and then you implement that plan as best as you can, and then amazing things happen. And then if we get enough people in the society doing that, a lot of amazing stuff is going to happen. And then so like ArawakX is there to just help pay for the business people's plans, the right business people's plans, the proper ones. I mean, the ones that have a legitimate chance of success. Right. And then things will happen.
Right. And so we started out with the view that at least I highlighted that it was said in one of your utterances, company utterances, in terms of ArawakX being a big play or a part of its vision and mission to be play in the development of youth and its wealth. So entrepreneurs, you an entrepreneur, can look to ArawakX to help build that capital overlay that they need to build their business. And so as you build out your listings, some companies will move faster than others in terms of growth. And
absolutely. Because the businesses grow in relation to the strength of their teams. Remember, businesses are just people and like tools, people and tools of different kinds. And so part of the growth of young people comes from being properly mentored and properly structured, so that they themselves can grow. And then as they become better at business tasks, then the company becomes better. And so it's all of that. It's kind of it's a very holistic. I know I'm talking in circles in some instances, but it's very much a holistic kind of approach. If you improve the financing, you'll be able to pay people properly, and you'll be able to nurture them properly, give them the right experiences, give them the right tools, and then they'll be able to compete against the whole world. We see that in sport, where we can win gold medals at the Olympics. By the way, the Olympics is much harder to win than it is to become wealthy. There's more money out there than Olympic gold medals. So, it's not, there is a formula to wealth. And the formula is you get into companies, you buy assets, and then that's how your wealth grows. And so, to not to oversell, at ArawakX, you can participate in the different asset class and purchase them. So
right. And so you mentioned the listings that you have now, but what about new listings in terms of the young entrepreneurs and the like? Can they be registered on ArawakX?
So not every company can be registered, but we don't judge the company based on the idea itself. We judge it based on the structure. And so we have a whole department of people that vet companies, and when I say vet, we're not vetting for the idea. We're vetting to make sure that you are who you say you are. You've put some thought into the plan. You are trying to do the business plan as you said you were going to do, and that's all it is about. It's there's some other things, of course, but it's generally speaking, it's about, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to go do this idea, and then we, ArawakX, just make you sure that you live what you say you were going to do. And then it's about the investor and the business person kind of finding each other so that they can say, yeah, I believe in you, and put some money behind you. And that's of course all of this happening on the internet. So that adds layers and layers of complexity. But it's I'm a child of the internet. So
but you don't. A company doesn't necessarily have to be in business 10 years or 20 years and then have this revenue coming in order to be able to.
That's not how ideas work, as you know. Sometimes, as you know, it's sometimes Now, it can't just be an idea that's in your head.
Right. Yeah.
It has to be properly, outlined. You have to have traction, which means something that proves that this is a legitimate business, and that could take many forms. Of course, sales are the best kind of traction. So some revenue coming in, and so it's all these things kind of coming together that make it work. I could spend all day talking about this.
Yeah.
But
well, I think.
I think we're running out of time here. And I was watching that ad for Sammy's Chicken that you had planned, and I got really hungry. So I think I'm gonna. I think it's time for that tonight.
They need to send some stuff our way once. But D'Arcy, thank you kindly for coming on the show. I think it puts a lot of stuff in perspective now. Hopefully, a number of persons out there would know, and they could see and start letting the ball tick in their head as to how they could position themselves so that they can leverage their own companies to be candidates to be on ArawakX and reveal the treasures that they have been gifted that they might not know that they have. At this point in time.
Absolutely.
But before we go, is there anything that you would like to say to the general public out there?
I just like to say to people, don't give up hope. We live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. The only thing we have to fix is a little bit of our economy, and then the place will be much sweeter for many more people. So it's possible. So, but we still have to do a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you. We're here. Something to think about with Dale Happy Knowles. We've been discussing with D'Arcy Rahming Jr. And we hope and pray and wish you and your family and the team down there at ArawakX that your company grows and become a staple in our society and help the whole to raise all the ships that is out there, including my ship, right?
And thank you for having me on the show, and good night to all of your listeners.
Okay, good night. Thanks a lot.